Learn. BQ Learning. Only on Bloomberg Quint.
Good morning, you're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint. I'm Darshan Mehta. Let's start with what's happening as far as most of the Asian markets are concerned. They seem to be trading much lower. The SGX Nifty is indicating a downtick of 10 points. But remember, we were shut yesterday and the SGX Nifty was down almost 25 points. So expect a close to 30 to 35 point gap down opening. But still, there are almost 1.5 hours for the markets to open. So that could change. So this is the broad trade setup that we're looking at. Most of the ADRs ended with a negative bias, be it an ICICI, Vedanta, Dr. Reddy's or a Wipro. All of them ended with a negative bias. The only stock to do well was Tata Motors, which was up almost 1% in trade. Now, overnight, crude did manage to see a little bit of selling. Crude was down 2% overnight, but in today's trade, it's trading rather flat. WTI close to the $67 barrel per mark, and Brent is trading close to the $73 barrel per mark. A couple of the base metals on the LME managed to end with a negative bias. So copper was down 1%, zinc was down 2.5%, lead was down almost 1.6%. So that was the broad cues. The others were flat, but steel is managing to rebound significantly. Steel is up almost 2.7% in China currently. You're seeing aluminium and zinc are seeing selling pressure, and so is copper. So copper is seeing selling pressure in trade today. Most of the precious metals are trading with a positive bias. Silver is up close to 1% and gold is up almost 0.5%. As far as fund flows are concerned, FIs were net sellers to the tune of 385 crores. DIs were net buyers to the tune of almost 261 crores in the cash market. Now, what happened as far as the index was concerned? The mid cap and small cap did manage to rally in trade. The VIX managed to move up by almost 3% in trade. The two sectors that did extremely well was the PSU banking index and the real estate index, which were up almost 1.5% each. Now, as far as the sector that didn't do well was the Nifty Energy, was down 2%, mainly led by Reliance. And if you're looking at the contribution, Reliance contributed a 30-point downtick on the Nifty. Axis and ICICI did contribute, but what helped the Nifty were the HDFC Twins, TCS as well as Kotak Bank. So the Nifty ended up almost 47 points up. There was fresh buying that was seen on the Nifty. If you're looking at the open interest change that happened, 1.5% open interest build up on the long side. There was short covering that was seen on the Nifty Bank. Open interest was down 3.5%. Fresh short covering was seen on the Nifty Bank. PCR managed to remain at pretty much the same level, didn't move the needle much for the Nifty itself. Now, if you're looking at what is happening, call writers are active from levels of 10,700 to 11,000. They expect the market to drop. Put writers are active from levels of 10,400 to levels of 10,700. So there is support coming in at levels of 10,600 and 10,700. Yesterday in trade, if you're looking at it, put writers were much more active at 10,600 and 10,700 level, and call writers wrote in at the 11,000 level in trade. Now, as far as some of the stocks are concerned, PC Jewelers comes in the F&O ban. It's the only stock in the F&O ban. As far as some of the other stocks are concerned, IRB Infra saw fresh buying on open interest build up of 17%. The other counter in focus was KPIT Tech, which saw fresh buying. Open interest build up was 16%. Now, PC Jewelers saw fresh shorts. Open interest build up was 36%. And finally, you saw counters like Canfin Home, which has actually corrected 30% from the recent highs. Open interest build up of 15% on the short side. So that's happening as far as the markets is concerned. But let's now go across to Bloomberg's Paul Allen for all the top global headlines.
Brexit talks resume in Brussels later on Wednesday, with the UK proposing a new plan for the Irish border. Chief negotiator David Davis says he wants to move forward quickly on avoiding a hard land frontier when the split happens next year. The EU's Michel Barnier is promising to work around the clock to find agreement ahead of next month's summit of European leaders. OPEC continues to over-deliver on its production cuts, with output falling further last month. Bloomberg data suggests the cartel pumped 31.93 million barrels a day, down from a revised 31.97 million in March. Iran led the drop ahead of the May 12 nuclear deal deadline. Prices fell the most in more than 3 weeks as the dollar strengthened and traders bet on another rise in US stockpiles. It's been revealed that the investigation into alleged corruption at Malaysia's 1MDB fund includes officials at Saudi Arabian oil producer PetroSaudi. The Swiss Attorney General says 2 people are suspected suspected of criminal mismanagement, fraud, bribery and money laundering. Swiss, US and Singaporean authorities are looking into allegations that more than $3 billion was diverted from one MBB. New Zealand unemployment fell to a fresh 9-year low, adding to signs the wage growth will eventually pick up. The jobless rate was 4.4% in the fourth quarter, matching the median in a Bloomberg survey. That is the lowest since the final quarter of 2008. With inflation languishing near the bottom of its target range, the RBNZ has signalled no rate hikes until mid-2019. The European Union is warning of growing market uncertainty following the US decision to delay steel and aluminium tariffs for another month. Just hours before the temporary relief was due to expire, the Trump administration said it would allow another 30 days for negotiations. Brussels says business decisions are already being affected, but Washington insists progress is being made. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Paul Allen. This is Bloomberg.
I have to be very honest. My opinion on Brexit is a catastrophe. The vote on Brexit, people voted on something they don't know what it is. They told them Brexit is all these foreigners coming here and taking your jobs. They didn't tell them that there is trade arrangements, there's currency arrangement, there is European issues, and they didn't tell them. They told them, oh, this is foreigners coming taking your jobs. So what do you want? So they vote on Brexit. Now someone has to go out and tell them what really Brexit is. This has not been done, and I think they voted on the wrong thing, So for investors like us, it's not going to be the same UK like before. Everybody wanted to come to London, everybody wanted to invest in London, everybody wants to live in London, now it's going to be a different ballgame. Until this is clear to everybody, what is this new?
So that would, until you know a much clearer version of Brexit, you will not put pounds to work.
Especially too, I was a big investor in real estate in London too, and then they issued these laws with the tax and VAT and all that, and they started to become not so efficient, governments usually sometimes kill the golden duck that gets the money by imposing taxes and VATs and like that. So
is that your perspective of the UK?
Yes, right now.
The world is facing big changes in terms of the price of money. Interest rates are rising in the United States. They're possibly going to move in the UK and Europe a little bit further behind. How do you look at markets at the moment in terms of risks? Are we all assessing the risks correctly?
I think the stock market is overvalued. This is my feeling. And
global stock markets?
Yes. And I feel that another crash when somehow will happen. That's why I'm in gold, and I'm in gold above my ratio. Like I'm 50% of my net worth is in gold. So it's a very high percentage. So.
Do you not think you should divert? Forgive me.
No, because my starting point was very low. So I created some value, so I'm fine. It was not half of my net worth when I started.
Where do you think gold can go to in terms of price?
In my opinion, it should go back to the 5 years ago, or the 1700, 1800. It should go there.
Do you think it can achieve that?
Because you have India and you have China, and they're big consumers, and they will not stop to consume. Because people also tend to go to gold when there are crises, and we are like full of crises right now. Look at the Middle East, look at all the rest of the world. So Iran and Mr. Trump doesn't help, So.
Okay, the stock of the day has to be L&T. Finally, after years and years of trying to sell the E&A division, they managed to do it. So the valuation is 14,000 crores, and the buyer is Schneider Electric. So that's what they've done. As far as 2 units, that's the marine switch as well as Sweater watches, won't be as part of the entire deal, and the deal will be will be done in the next 18 months. Now, why is this? Why was this deal done? Basically, the management is saying that wasn't this is mainly a non-core business for them, and they want to focus mainly as far as their main business as the E&P construction is concerned. If you're looking at what happened over the last 4 quarters, revenues of the E&A division has remained range bound. In fact, they've fallen from 1,700 crores in the 4th quarter last time to almost 1,300 crores now, and the margins have also pretty much remained at a stagnant level, except for 3rd quarter where there was a blip. Apart from it, the managed margins have remained at the same level. Even if you're looking at a yearly comparison, if you look at what happened in the first 9 months versus the last 2 years, revenues have fallen in excess from 5,000 crores to almost 3,900 crores currently, while margins have pretty much managed to remain range bound. It doesn't contribute much to the total revenues. It's almost just 5% of the total revenues and has come down from levels of 6.5% a couple of years ago. The main business of L&T currently is the infrastructure space, which is almost 50% of the top line. The management has said that doesn't fit in with the future outlook of the company, and they want to exit that business. And mainly, it will be important to see what the management does with the 14,000 crores that come in. They have significant amount of debt on the books. Whether they will go ahead and reduce that is something important. But valuation wise won't move the needle. It's a decent valuation. It's done at almost 19 times the FY19 March EV to EBITDA, in line with ABB and much lower than Siemens. But analysts expect that this won't move the needle because this was in terms of the valuation that was expected for L&T. But let's hear in what the management of L&T had to say on this entire transaction.
Schneider, as you all know, is a 24.7 billion euro organization, and it's one of the best companies to house this business of ours. It's been an integral part of Larsen & Toubro, but as we move forward on our path of infrastructure, construction, EPC, manufacturing, defense, and certain services, we feel this business does not fit into a long-range thinking. Business also requires a fair amount of R&D spend, tooling, and such other factors to keep it positive and moving. So we believe Schneider is a good company to handle that, to take it forward. As such, we have been over the years moving into more into the infrastructure, construction, EPC, the big product manufacturing and the services kind of organization. That would be the core as we move forward.
Let's now get your check on the commodity space, starting off with oil prices. In fact, all the commodities have been impacted by the surging dollar that we have seen in the recent few days. So oil prices are trading currently flat with a positive bias. But remember that both WTI and Brent managed to decline nearly 2% overnight. Now, once again, this was on the back of appreciation in the greenback that we have seen for the past few days, and also that we are expecting inventory data to climb as much as 3.4 million barrels as per an API report. As far as base metals are concerned, most of the base metals in fact closed lower on the London Metal Exchange. Now, aluminium stockpiles declined nearly 1.2%, which is the most in a year. And we have a Moody's report which says that copper and nickel shortfalls may actually slow down the battery boom. Now, on account of this, zinc was down 2.5%, which is a top loser in trade, while lead declined nearly 1%. Aluminium and tin, however, managed to close with marginal positive bias for themselves. Now, if you look at the Shanghai Futures Exchange, most of these base metals are trading with a mixed bias, with Shanghai Steel that is trading more than 2% higher for itself. As far as precious metals are concerned, gold prices have dipped to a one-month low near the 1300 mark on account of a surge in the dollar index, which has gained 1% so far this week.
Among the stocks that we're tracking includes a couple of earnings that came out post-market hours, starting off with Dabur, which posted a really good set of numbers. Revenues grew by 6%, net profit grew by 19%. Operationally also, with respect to the EBITDA, that grew by 16%, and EBITDA margins expanded by about 210 basis points. The domestic volume growth came in at 7.7%. We are also tracking numbers for Hindustan Zinc, more or less in line with expectations. Yes, that's the number that we had. EBITDA has come in line with expectations, but no final dividend could actually turn out to be a disappointment for this stock, so keep an eye out for that name. You have CEAT, where revenues have grown by 14%, net profit has grown by 17%, a big jump as far as the EBITDA number is concerned, up 50%, so watch out for that name. You also have Alicon Castalloy, which has reported numbers, revenue growth of 43%, net profit up 62%. Operationally, the revenue growth fell in line with the top line growth. So EBITDA up 45% and margins remain more or less steady. So good set of numbers coming in from this one as well. That apart, in terms of corporate developments, the biggest news was with respect to Fortis Healthcare, where two of these suitors have upped their bids. You have IHH, which has raised the bid from 160 to 175 per share, and then you have the Hero Munjals, which have upped the investment from about 1500 crore previously that they had offered to about 1800 crore. So do watch out for Fortis Healthcare. Mahindra & Mahindra is another one. Apart from the auto sales numbers that came out for April, the company also said they will be acquiring up to 10% stake in a Canadian company, Resin Aerospace, and that is for 6.3 Canadian dollars. That's about 35 crores or so. Smaller acquisition for Mahindra & Mahindra. That apart, what we're tracking is MOIL, which has cut the ferro grade and fine prices by 15%, and they have also cut chemical grades of ore prices by about 7.5%. Watch out for that name. We have IDBI Bank, which will be in focus, and this is on the back of a ET report which says that Max and Exide Life have been shortlisted for IDBI Federal Life insurance stake sale, and the valuation is likely to be seen at about 6,000 crores. So Federal Bank, IDBI Bank, Max, Exide, watch out for all these names which could possibly react on the back of this report. Order win coming in for Mastech, deal win. According to Bloomberg News, that it has won a contract for UK Home Office's biometrics. And lastly, we are tracking Methan Alloy, which will set up a new ferroalloy plant in West Bengal, and the company has also said that they're looking to acquire distressed companies' assets, so watch out for that name as well. So all of these names to watch out for.
Now, you see, the demand for power is the least of my challenges. In fact, the demand for power is an opportunity. It's an opportunity because, you know, I have many assets under stress and they will come out of stress as the demand increases. So that's the least of it. The challenges are huge. The challenges are I need more manpower, trained manpower, more contractors. The requirement of equipment is huge. I mean, you know, when I go down the streets, this is the feedback which I get when I discuss it with the ministers, the principal secretaries and the CMDs of DISCOMs. Requirement of poles, requirement of conductors, HT lines, LT lines, requirement of transformers, requirement for meters. That's huge. So this is the challenge.
And what would?
But we'll get there.
What is the demand for electrifying all villages, all households that you anticipate, or?
I believe that will go up by at least 28,000, 30,000 megawatts. Okay. But you know, we already have an established capacity of 335,000 megawatts. So the established capacity is sufficient.
Okay. So you've also said that you would start penalizing DISCOMs if they're not able to supply 24/7 power to households.
We propose that.
So how would
amendment?
Yeah, since most of these are turning into stressed assets, how do you plan to?
Who is turning into stressed assets?
The power DISCOMs. Yeah. So how do you plan to?
The DISCOMs are not stressed. The DISCOMs are not stressed at all, and the DISCOMs have losses, and they are. We are working with them to reduce those losses, but they are not stressed.
On the big earnings today, Interglobe Aviation first. Now, it is expected to report a steady set of numbers in the fourth quarter of financial year 2018, despite cancellation of flights which led to more than 900 flights cancelled. Now, the revenue was expected to be up by around 26% to close to 6,100 crore rupees, while EBITDA, that is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization and rental cost, is expected to be higher by around 14%. However, on the margin front, it is expected to contract to around 25% versus 27.5% reported by the company last year. Lastly, on the net profit is expected to be high by around 9% to close to 478 crore rupees. Now, this is expected to be a steady quarter on the back of modest growth in airfare, strong passenger growth and a stronger rupee. Also, passenger load factor, which is known as the capacity utilization, averaged around 90% in the fourth quarter versus 86% in the last year. Now, the passenger growth was around 24% for the airline company, while airfares are expected to be higher by around 3%, while INR averaged around 64 per dollar versus 67 per dollar in the last in last year. Now, some of these positives are expected to be offset by higher aviation turbine fuel prices. Now, the jet fuel was higher by around 12% compared to last year, so we'll see a margin pressure because of this. Also, the company is expected to be compensated by Pratt & Whitney for the engine issues that the company faced in the fourth quarter of financial year 2018. So that could be a surprise factor for the company in the fourth quarter. Lastly, things to watch out for would include management commentary on growth and yield, updates on induction of new aircrafts and NEO-related engine issues. Lastly, guidance on fuel prices and the future plans of the company on long-distance international routes will be a key thing to watch out for. Well, the other two earnings expected to come out today, it's HCL Tech and Hero MotoCorp. And we have Nikki joining us on the scene. So, Nikki, first on HCL Tech, how the numbers are expected to be?
Samit, we're expecting a fairly decent quarter coming in from HCL Tech. In terms of the dollar revenue, we're looking at a 2.6% uptick there at a number of $2,040 million as compared to $1,988 million that we've seen in the previous quarter, QOQ. Income is expected to rise as much as 3.1% in Indian currency to a number of 13,200 crore. EBIT is seen higher by as much as 4% to a number of around 2,610 crore. The margins, however, expected to remain stable around that 19.5 level. PAT is seen growing as much as 2.5% sequentially to a number of 2,248 crore. In terms of guidance, we're expecting a reasonable guidance in terms of the constant currency basis to a number of around 7.5 to 9.5% growth in FY19. In terms of the margin guidance, we're looking at a 19 to 20.5% kind of a guidance. And for FY18, the company is expected to post a revenue growth at the lower end of around 10.5 to around 12.5% level. What we are expected to watch, the traction in IMS as well as the engineering service business, along with the digital and IP partnership. These will be the two key factors. Along with that, we'd also like to watch out on the organic growth outlook, along with the M&A preferences in FY19. The other set of earning that expectation that we have is for Hero MotoCorp. We're expecting a fairly strong quarter for this company, at least in terms of the volume growth. In top line growth, we're looking at a 23% growth there at a number of around 8,541 crore as compared to nearly 6,900 crore that we've seen in the corresponding quarter of the previous year. EBITDA has seen up as much as 44% for this company at a number of around 1,379. Profit is seen rising by 33% to 958. Margins are seen expanding to 16.1% as compared to nearly 14% that we've seen in the corresponding quarter. The volume growth, importantly, we are expected to see a good volume growth, which is expected to be the best ever since 2011. Also, we expected to drive the higher volume growth is expected to drive the margin expansion. However, realizations somehow are expected to be flat. What we'd like to keep an eye out, at least in terms of the management commentary, would be the demand outlook, the rural demand picture, and the demand in export markets. Along with that, the new model launches, if any, for the calendar year 2019.
All right, sticking with the auto space, Indian automakers began the new financial year with strong sales in April, continuing the momentum that was seen in March when all the companies reported strong double-digit sales growth. Now, the country's largest car maker, Maruti Suzuki, saw sales rise for the 14th straight month, driven by demand for its compact cars. Tata Motors saw its sales nearly double over the same month last year. Now, speaking about the numbers, while Maruti's sales grew at 14.4% over the previous year, Tata Motors sold 86% more vehicles compared with the last year, driven primarily by both its commercial and passenger vehicle segments. Now, Mahindra & Mahindra's sales rose 22% and tractor sales continued to be strong, rising 18% on year. The numbers that you have to watch out for today are Ashok Leyland, Hero MotoCorp and Bajaj Auto.
Let's get your check on what stocks need to be on your radar based on the delivery buying and selling as of Monday. The first stock that we have is IRB Infra. Now, that was up about 6.5% and saw delivery buying of more than 80 crores. The delivery volume shot up 92% at nearly 30 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume more than doubled at nearly 1.1 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average. Second stock to watch out for, that would be Bombay Dyeing. Now, that was up about 6.5% as well and saw delivery buying of nearly 90 crores. The delivery volume surged 86% at nearly 25 lakh shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume surged 131% at nearly 1.3 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average. Last and final stock, PC Jewellers. Now that was down about 18.7% in trade and saw deliveries selling of more than 300 crores. The delivery volume, however, shot up just 70% at nearly 1.8 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average, and the total volume surged 138% at nearly 13.5 crore shares as compared to its 5-day average.
All right, key earnings, auto sales numbers, and a lot of catching up with regard to the bond market and the rupee market. You'll find all of that right here on Bloomberg Quint Live. There are also several stories that you can find on the website, bloombergquint.com. Here are just a couple of them. The government has extended the date for submitting an expression of interest for picking up 76% stake in Air India to May 31st from the earlier deadline of May 14th. It has also clarified that individuals other than the airline's employees would not be allowed to bid. Now, two of Flipkart's mutual fund investors have kept the e-commerce giant's valuation unchanged even after the March quarter losses wiped out nearly half of the $6.1 billion that the company has raised since inception. All right, that's all you need to know going into trade today. But like I said, there's a lot more on the other side, starting with Indian Open. So do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.